the cloud. Right, hello and welcome to our Round the World Roundup. We have some great people here from across the world. I think we've got 6 different countries on. So what we'll start off doing is a little introduction from everyone so you can find out who they are and what businesses they run. Ryan, can we start with you?
Certainly. Thank you very much, Erin, for having us. My name is Ryan Dodson. I'm the CEO of the Salt Suite, which is a dry salt therapy business. We are based out of North Carolina in the United States, and we currently have 6 locations, getting ready to have 9 locations open shortly after the turn of the new year in 2022.
Brilliant, thank you. Beata?
Hi, I'm Beata Jarava. I'm one of the directors for Breathe Salt Wellness and Vitality Wellness World. We have recently opened Breathe Salt Wellness about a year ago, located in Surrey, part of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And we have merged with Vitality Wellness World, which is a cellular rehabilitation, and opening up a 3rd clinic within a year. So it's definitely, the demand is there in British Columbia side, and result-wise is also there from us. And on the note, we are dealing with a dry salt therapy as well. Brilliant,
thank you. And Sharon?
Hi, Erin. Sharon here from Dublin in Ireland. So I own the Salt Clinic. We currently have 1 clinic and hoping to have another one open again by the end of the week. So clinic number 2 on the way. We opened in 2017, and yeah, we've just been going from strength to strength in Ireland. Yeah,
brilliant. Kenny?
Hi, Erin. Hi, everyone. My name's Kenny. I own a business called Breathe Better Salt Rooms in Melbourne, Australia. We've been running this since 2014. I think during that time, we've seen a lot of changes and challenges, for that matter, especially in the last couple of years. So yeah, it's a very interesting future for salt therapy.
Right. I think we've just lost Shaliza. She's having a bit of internet trouble, but hopefully she can jump in and join us when she can. She's from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. Well, I guess with the past 2 years having been predominantly dominated by the COVID pandemic, I think it's probably a really good place for us to start our discussion. I've heard of so many businesses having been forced to close their doors. It's brilliant to hear that you've all managed to survive that, and by some accounts are starting to thrive as well. So it'd be great if maybe we can just open the discussion about how we've found, or how you've found, the past 2 years in your business. Feel free to jump in, anybody.
I suppose, like anybody, it's been so hard, like between having to actually close, and then when you do open, you have social distancing, so your capacity is reduced by maybe 50 or 60%. Like, so it has been a struggle in that instance. We're lucky that our rooms are quite big, so we can still fit quite a few people into it. But I suppose on the opposite side, we kind of moved into doing halotherapy at home for people, which was a real a good thing for our business, being able to do that. So
yeah, there were a lot of people who were either unable to get out, didn't want to get out, or if your shop was shut as well. So that's actually a really good option, isn't it? Did anyone else have options where they did them at home? No?
Our clinic is actually next year trying to launch, go into mobile. So we want to go half to home. That will be kind of incentive. And we're trying to engage a couple vehicles. And in order to do it in British Columbia, you have to be first having a clinic in a given location. So if you're intercities, the clinic has to be there as a base, and then you can go mobile. So that's what we are trying to establish right now. But if I can say a story, how we kind of go about with the wellness and how we grew, and the pandemic actually was a beautiful thing for us, because we had grown significantly due to pandemic. So I only purchased a clinic about a year ago, and that was because of my daughter used to go to this particular location 4 years ago due to her asthma. Her asthma was so significant that we've been hospitalized. We had to go to emergency multiple times, and I was searching for some help that is more natural for her. 4 years ago, I found something, which was this particular location. And at that time, I offered the owner that I'd like to partner with her, but she was not open at that time. When the pandemic came in February, she fully shut down. There was no operational until September. In September, she approached me if I want to buy it out, which indeed I did. And I had one client coming from her previously. That was it. So I just did it in the mercy of kind of God. And I said, I bought this for a reason, for myself, my family, for my friends. Let just that be. And within a month, we grew to 300 clients. And since then, we've just been steady and consistent. And the results that we were getting is helping us to go further. So that's how
That's
it goes.
brilliant to hear. Kenny, you had some pretty intense lockdowns in Australia, didn't you? Where pretty much everything was shut. How did you get on there?
There was no decision really. It was the state government down in Victoria closed down just about every business, except for liquor stores and takeaway coffee. Yeah, so there was no real choice. We simply had to endure the lockdown and be closed, which ironically from all our colleagues, you, I, and everyone around the world, we know how beneficial salt therapy is. So that was probably part of the frustrating side of it.
Yeah. Did anyone manage to stay open through offering medical services at all?
Well, in Ireland, we were actually classed as an essential service, so we were able to stay open. So we were still treating people, not after the forced kind of full lockdown, but subsequent lockdowns. Yeah, we stayed open.
Yeah, it's a real shame. Sorry, Ryan.
Yeah, that's all right. In the United States, it was hit and miss with us because our federal government, gave a lot of those decisions to more of the local governments to make. And we had some locations that absolutely were shut down because the local government said, hey, look, we're going to lock everything down. And we had other locations where we were able to get exemptions. One of them by being a place for therapeutic type of services, and the other one because we had less than 10 employees, of an odd threshold to throw out there. However, we had locations that were able to stay open. However, we still had the same challenges that Sharon mentioned, which was, because of the social distancing, we did have to reduce capacities in some of those. But the locations that did stay open fared a lot better coming out of COVID than those that had to completely shut down.
Yeah. So with the reduced capacities, how are you finding kind of making money again? Are you making less money now that you're not seeing as many people, or are you opening longer hours? How are you getting around that?
So right now for us, fortunately, we're able to be at 100% capacity in all of our locations now. And so, we haven't had it, but coming out of it, yes. I mean, we did extend hours. We had some clients that were insisting on basically single sessions. And if we had the capability of offering that, especially to our clients have been with us for so long, we by all means, they've made that possible. But those were a couple of things that we did.
How many people do you have in your rooms, Ryan? How big are your rooms?
Our largest rooms will hold 8, but the vast majority of them will hold 5 or 6.
Okay. Beata, you were going to say something there.
Yeah, so I don't have a data to compare it with, just like Ryan or Sharon or Kenny. I apologize for that, but only I can compare within a year. We've never needed to shut down, so we kind of kept being open. It was just, again, hit and missed. There was no certain particular guidance. Again, that's because probably British Columbia was not so impacted. But the way I have found keeping that clientele was extending the hours all the way to 8 p.m. from morning to 8 p.m. So we've been open throughout the whole day and including weekends. So we've been open all the time. And that's kind of engaged people in their time. But what we also noticed is we designed rooms small. So now we have for 2s or 3s. So we made everything so it's more cubicles. And now we purchased a couple of the sold booth. So we will probably going to be engaging more of the individual treatments more. And the Halo Pocket is so greatly in demand. I have about 40, 50 orders.
Wow. That's
People want to
amazing.
take it home.
So what would be your top kind of tips or thoughts? Like, I'm guessing that, you know, we're going to end up with something very similar again in the future at some point in time. How would you look to bulletproof your business if this was to happen again? What are the key things that maybe you'd look at trying to do to not shut if possible?
In our end, in British Columbia end, sorry, hi Kenny, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I would almost say be resourceful, find different devices that are producing the same results. So if the Halo Pocket is it actually offers quite a good margins. It helps people. You can lease it, you can rent it. So it gives the same returns. I would almost go have these devices available for people that can take it home and use it. And also maybe consider making the room smaller and everything based on appointments. That works very well in a clinic. So everything is based on appointment and nobody can just show at the door. But yeah, making the rooms small, people feel very comfortable. They don't have somebody else sitting next to them. That's like a big no-no here. I haven't even been able to do that.
How
about you, Kenny?
Oh, I think the main way we can combat is the same as the whole industry has faced all these years, is really education and education. It's the biggest. People going into it, they've no idea what salt therapy is all about, and even the ones who've tried it, they forget quite quickly. Especially with lockdown, it's out of mind, out of sight. So the education and going out to the community and doing talks at different sporting venues, different health and wellness centres, different aged care facilities, those sort of things, and re-educating people, telling them how beneficial this is. And the revelation usually, you know, especially for those who are our long-term members, is that this should have been open, this should have stayed open all throughout the pandemic. But I think there's a lot of ignorance is probably a strong word, but throughout the community, including government ranks, where we sort of don't have that recognition. That's from Australia's point of view. I don't really know what it's like for the rest of the world, but I'm assuming in a lot of the Western world, people don't really understand salt therapy. They don't really, you know, it's more of a, they see there's as best possible alternative rather than complementary.
Absolutely, and that's definitely what I find in the UK. Most people that I ask about halotherapy, they're like, what's that? So it really is trying to get the word out there, trying to help educate, but also try to reach the medical side. If we could make an impact or somehow get through to doctors and physicians to start considering halotherapy as a complementary treatment. None of us are out there saying that we're trying to replace prescription medication. All we're saying is consider this as a complementary treatment to hopefully, you know, improve the conditions that you're trying to treat, and hopefully also reduce the reliance on actual medication. And I think that's one of the things that the World Halotherapy Association would really like to do, and we can do that with our members, is by helping each other to get the word out there. So the more of us that talk about it, hopefully the wider the word will spread, which is another reason why we're trying to integrate more with the wellness world too, the whole wellness industry, reaching spas and sports clubs and all other areas where people tend to go to help them feel better. And if halotherapy is an option, then people are going to hear more about it. So I think that probably brings us on to, you know, respiratory conditions, really. I guess that's probably the main reason people come to see you. Shall we just talk about what are the main symptoms people are coming to you with?
For us, it would be for the likes of sinusitis or anything like COPD and asthma as well. We're treating a lot of people for that. And I suppose at the moment in Ireland, it's children suffering with respiratory conditions. It's just like we're booked out really in the clinic. The second clinic for us is almost going to take the pressure off the first one, you know, that way at the moment. So that's really what we're seeing a lot of. And people with long COVID as well, because we are getting such good results. And like at this stage, now everybody knows somebody who has had COVID, and word of mouth just spreads about the results that people are getting, and people are getting their energy back again, you know, and it's life is returning to normal for people, you know, that way. So we're definitely seeing a lot of people like that.
Yeah, we keep track of why our customers come in, what brings them in, what are they trying to get, you know, help with, and something like that. Number one, sinusitis. That's been the big one for years that have brought folks in. Number two is just like seasonal allergies. You know, however, we are seeing a lot of recent traction with, you know, a couple items. You know, number one, it being folks that either have stress or looking to help with sleeping. Great results with those. I mean, even funny stories about, you know, this one lady walked out of one of our suites and she went up to the front counter. She's like, I need you guys to make a note. And that is, if my husband ever cancels this membership, please tell me so I can call my divorce attorney, because when he comes here, he's able to sleep and I am able to sleep. And so he can never stop coming here. He has to come here for the rest of his life. So anyway, so, you know, sleep and, you know, helping with sleep apnea and other conditions like that, breathing conditions from that standpoint, number one. But then number two, we've started to see a lot of folks come in that are really looking to increase their respiratory capacity and their respiratory health, that are very much into athletics, whether they are just, you know, whether they're marathoners. We have a couple in our Delray Beach location that are professional MMA fighters. We have professional tennis players that they're coming in to see us just because they really want to help increase their endurance and their capacity, you know, lung capacity.
And are you getting positive responses from them?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, positive responses for them, especially. And then they start referring it, of course, everybody over in their circle, which is, you know, the absolute best way to acquire customers, through word of mouth.
Absolutely. I completely agree on the word of mouth. It definitely sells it. You know, hearing a personal story, and it's probably how a lot of us have ended up doing what we're doing as well, because we've experienced it, or, you know, been touched by the benefits of halotherapy. Beata, how have you been finding people coming in post-COVID?
I just wanted to say what Ryan was saying with Sharon, that our clientele is more of allergies, asthma. I would say a lot more for after COVID recovery. We've seen probably that the most increasing for last 4 or 5 months. We don't see many children, interestingly enough. We don't have the demand for that, but we see a lot of animals. So we have particularly day in a week on a Wednesdays when people can bring their animals. They would actually pay extra so we can get their animals in, but children, not really.
Oh,
It's
wow.
interesting enough for demographics. Yeah, I don't know. Athletes, we don't get to see them either. It's kind of unknown. They're using different treatments in here so far. I'd like to get into that field. I used to be a professional athlete myself, so something like that I would really engaged on. But we are really busy with the COVID. We would have people who are thinking they might be getting something, or they feel scratchy throats, or starting to feel like they want to cough. We've seen lots of those. Obviously, we only enter them with the certain protocol that has to be in place for the COVID. And we do have a lot of COVID recoveries people. So I would have clients coming in, and this was a beautiful story. This particular one, he has been on a ventilator on his nose for about 2 months after COVID, didn't take it off for the entire 2 months, would sleep with it, to be the whole day long. He came to a salt treatment. He was so scared. He came with his wife, literally holding hand, because he was so scared it's going to damage him, make things worse. I had to literally leave the door open. He didn't let me to even close the door, the first treatment. So I had to have it a little bit open, which the efficacy of the treatment is not as strong, but we had to do that. He was able to take it off for some period of time inside the salt room. He was able to breathe on his own, which he was thrilled. And after the first treatment, that night, literally that night, he was able to breathe without it, whole night sleeping without it, which I'm not saying is going to work with everybody. This was one of the significant one, which was very great to hear. But we have multiple people coming after COVID. They have often enough, they have a shortness of breath, tightness on their chest. They cannot perform any activities. They're just happy if they can just walk from place to place. And after about 1 week within a treatment, which is about every second day, they would come to our clinic. They are thanking us. They says, well, I can walk longer. I don't feel such a tightness in my chest. So things like this are just ongoing. And then some of the clients we don't even get to see because they just got better and they go with their life, right? And that's the whole idea.
With the post-COVID, do you kind of get an idea on how many sessions a lot of the people tend to need before maybe they start reducing it down or maybe not even coming back again?
I would say comfortably they see the results within a week, but we want to keep them for at least those 6 weeks. And that means the first, at least that worked for me. I don't know how it worked for you, Ryan and Sharon and Kenny, but I found if I have them committed to 1 month, coming about 3 times a week for about 30 to 40 minutes treatment, we have a beautiful results. Then we cut it shorter so they can come the next month or a few more weeks coming after. They'll come once or twice a week, depends on their schedule. And that's supposed to make, that actually maintains it very nicely. And then we just see them whenever they need to.
We would probably be around about the same. We'd want to see it, and it really does depend on how bad somebody is. So when they come in, we would kind of assess them and then take it from there. Like, so it's not kind of one shoe fits all, but we would definitely try to see them maybe 5 times in the first week, and then 2 to 3 times a week for a number of weeks after that. And then I think once people start to come like that, they nearly tell you when they need to be there rather than we tell them, because they know exactly how the treatment is working for them and how they feel. Generally, after about 4 weeks, people will do maintenance of maybe a session every 7 to 10 days, and that seems to be enough.
Yeah, that's really interesting you should say that, because that's what I'm finding. After that first session, they do come out and go, oh, I don't feel quite as tight on my chest. Oh, I can take a bigger breath. The next time they come, they're like, oh yeah, that's even better. And they might find that they're sleeping better at night, or they're not being woken up by that cough. But they can definitely start to almost moderate themselves, can't they? They start realizing how often they need them, because I get people coming back saying, oh yeah, I started coughing again yesterday, but they just left it that little bit too long. So then next time they come, you know, maybe with a 5-day gap instead. But as you say, everyone is different as well, and everyone's been affected by COVID differently. And also it possibly depends on how long ago they had COVID, because I'm seeing with some of my long COVID patients that it takes a good 2 to 3 weeks to even start getting into the mucus, almost to start getting them to bring the mucus up, because it's been sitting down in their lungs for so long. It's almost like consolidated down there. And they're also not breathing properly. So if they're not breathing properly, they're not able to get it out either. Kenny, how are things in Australia? I mean, you guys have to deal with fires as well, don't you? So do you see a lot of people with asthma and things like that too?
Yeah, so fundamentally, so winter we see a lot of kids with croup, pneumonia, bronchitis, asthma, and then as well as the typical cold and flu, and the mainstay throughout the year is your asthma, COPD, and sinusitis. But then over the summer, which is where we are now here in Australia, we come up to allergy season. So we see a lot of the kids drop off from their cold and flu. And I think there's a bit of a cultural slant towards hay fever being not really a sickness or an illness, but rather something that they pop a Zyrtec or a Demizen just to fix them for the day, and they find themselves in that routine of just simply popping a pill every day, getting benefit for the 6 to 8 hours, and then thinking that's the normal. And it's a revelation when they discover that salt therapy can actually alleviate that that need for quite a significant long term. We're seeing people who finally take the plunge. I'm sick. This Zyrtec doesn't work anymore, and they find when they do about 3 or 4 months of salt therapy, they find they've lost their hay fever for the next couple of years at least. And so it's been a revelation. That's when our education starts having an organic growth, where it starts spruiking themselves. So but it's an interesting one. As I said, the cultural norm is that they don't consider hay fever an illness, as opposed to all the work we've done towards cold and flu and so forth. So that we don't really get the same patronage levels over our summer.
And the whole kind of front loading as well, I think everyone's almost touched on that. You really need to ensure that you get a decent number of sessions in quite close together, almost like you're giving your body a whole hit to start with, so that you're getting the salt into the system before you can enter into a maintenance phase. And that's specifically important for the allergy season, is to get onto it before it starts, really, isn't it? To prepare yourself.
Very much.
Excellent. Yeah. So you actually see quite a lot of children into your salt rooms.
Yeah, over the winter. Yeah. But it's sort of our kids' room suddenly becomes deserted over late spring, all of summer, and most of autumn. Things don't start picking up until probably in the kids' room till probably April, May. So we've got a long wait there for the kids' room.
I mean, I guess again it comes down to the education as well, and to if people were to maybe use it a bit more regularly as part of their health routine, they wouldn't get ill as much in the first place, which means they wouldn't have to come in at certain times. But if you kept on doing it continuously throughout the year, and then as you notice something coming on, then you up your sessions, which will hopefully then kill it off before it takes hold and you don't end up with snotty-nosed children. I know my children now actually know to take themselves into my salt room. You know, they start to get a bit of a sore throat or a bit of a snotty nose and like, Mom, I need to go in the salt room. Okay, off you go. And that's a great education, I think, is that actually starting to take charge of their own health. And if we can start helping other children to do that, not just our own, you know, that's the next big step, because the children really are the future, aren't they? And we're trying to prepare them for their wellness and their future.
And that's that first step. That's that first cultural step. Having your own kids, and then next thing you know, their friends, their families take that step as a salt therapy becomes the first option. And that's the small steps that we'll try and get momentum from.
We do see some of our long-term customers in the salt clinic, whereby they'll start to come in with the children, say like mid-August, and they're starting to prepare for the cold snap that comes in September and October, and they're actually preparing the children who have asthma starting in August. So it's great to see.
Yeah. Has anyone noticed that this year's flu or cold season seems to have been a lot worse, because people don't seem to have that immunity, because we've all been kind of locked up and locked away?
Aaron, I can promise you that we have definitely seen that already. I mean, I have 2 daughters. Both of them are going to university this year. Well, neither of them went last year because they were completely locked down. So they did it all virtually from their bedroom. And well, this year, all of them and all their other kids the same age are back together. And it's just like they are exchanging. It's a lot worse because they've been in their little cocoons. And, you know, and one of them, she ended up loading up her car with 3 other friends who had the same type of croup, the same type of cough, whatever else, drove 2.5 hours to our house to go use the salt cave that we have there on our house, on our property. And so they sit there and they did a double session and drove them all back. And she was telling us later, she's like, all of my friends were like, oh my gosh, this was so amazing. This worked so well just for them. But you know, it's great seeing them taking action and thinking about how they're going to be. But to answer your main question, yes, it has been a lot worse so far this year than it has been last year.
Excellent. It'd be really lovely, I think, to share some more stories of success stories, really. Has anyone had a COPD patient who has had a good story?
I actually had a COPD patient who started with us. We had only opened about a week, and she came into us, it was in December, and she said, I'm going on holidays in April. She said, and I just want to be able to walk around the shops with the ladies who I'm going with. So we said, okay. So we put a plan together for her, and she wasn't able to walk. She wasn't able to kind of tidy her own house and stuff. And she actually bought herself a pedometer, and by the time she went on holiday, she was doing 9,000 steps a day. She was like, I can change my own beds again. She said, I've just literally gotten my life back. And that's a COPD patient. Fantastic results. When people, for COPD, you're kind of in it for the long haul, because it takes so many sessions to actually get you to the place where it's kind of, it's done what it needs to do. Like, you're talking 20 or 30 sessions, but if people actually stick with it, the results are amazing.
Yeah, I mean, just offering someone back some quality of life is incredible, isn't it? I know I get the warm fuzzies when I have someone, come back to me saying what they'd been off and doing because they've been able to do it. And they're not puffing as they walk up the path to my room. It makes a big difference. Kenny, have you got an amazing success story to share?
Yeah, I've got one in mind. This guy, Robert, I did talks at a local hospital, St John of God's pulmonary rehab department, and there was a guy that they referred me named Robert. He was 67 at the time, a Vietnam War vet, so he had a lot of COPD damage from the chemicals used during the war. And it turns out that he lived in his bedroom. He lived in his bed. He ate there. He spent his entire day there, and so his big effort was to actually come down to the centre every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at 1 o'clock, and he did that for 3 months. He was a man of very few words. In fact, I didn't think he liked me because he'd finish his sessions, and as he'd leave, I'd say, Robert, how did it go? He goes, good, and just kept walking out. And he did that quite routinely 3 times a week. And at the end of 3 months, he said he wanted to have a break for a month and see what it's like. When he came back after a month, he said, Kenny, you've saved my life. I thought I was going to die. I thought that I was near, and turns out that he was on I've forgotten, what is it? Where you get the
dialysis, ventilator or oxygen?
Ventilator. It was on a ventilator 4 times a day. Wow. And he used the whole Ventolin inhaler every 2 days. And he said, he's basically said, excuse the language, he said, I basically pissed and shit in bed because I couldn't get out of bed. I didn't get the mail. He said, guess what? Now, after doing salt therapy, I walk around the neighborhood every day. I see how beautiful my suburb is. And I know that I'm alive. And I said, so what are you going to do now? I said, I'm going to quit salt therapy. I said, what do you mean you're going to quit salt therapy? He says, well, I know where you are. I know how that works. I'm good now, so I'm going to go and enjoy my life. So what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to buy a new car. I said, he's going to do a road trip to northern New South Wales to visit his old war buddies who he thought he'd never ever see again. And then he disappeared. And for about the next 2 years, I wondered, he's got COPD. He had less than 30% lung capacity.
Wow.
And I thought, I hope he doesn't think that I've cured him, because it's a permanent condition. So, and I wondered, and when I was doing one of my talks down our peninsula here, and I always talk about Robert, and I mentioned this guy Robert, and then all of a sudden this guy puts his hand up. He's in the audience. He says, I think you're talking about me, Ken. Oh my God, there he is. I was too scared to ring and find out how you were. He said, no, I'm pretty good. I've got a bit of a cold. Well, why didn't you come in? So he's good. He's all well and good. Breathing's no issue. So I hadn't seen the need to come in because he's feeling a lot better.
Wow.
So yeah, it's still my favorite story.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, I have a story too. There was a gentleman, actually there's a lot of stories. We do testimonials, we take a lot of videos, and it's on our website. So if you guys ever want to share, feel free to download it or share it with others. Just go on our website and get that information. But there was a gentleman who had suddenly lost his voice and went to see a nose, throat, and ear specialist. And he had planned to go for surgery for his, I don't know, vocal something, because he just couldn't talk. Even whenever he would be speaking, he would lose a voice. People couldn't hear him on the phone, what he was trying to say. So he went for the first treatment, in a soul treatment. He had no expectations. Somebody told him to go because he was going to the gym. He was about 72 years old, gentleman, but very athletic. So he started a treatment, and after the first treatment, he was unaware, but he was kind of getting better, but he was not sure. So he kept going. He was coming about 3 times every week. And after about a week, he says that his friends called him on a phone, and they started to have a normal conversation with him. And as often before, they couldn't finish the conversation because his voice would be gone, and the call would end. And he would have kept talking to them, and he didn't realize it. But they told him, they says, "Hey, buddy, like we have conversation here. Like, what happened? You can talk." And he kind of brought that to our attention, and he said, "I think I'm getting my voice back." And he would speak shortly, and then afterwards he would not have a voice, right? And he had been dated for the surgery 2 weeks from the moment that he came to see us, and he postponed the surgery, and he never needed to have it done. That was kind of the end goal of it. And he's on the testimonials. He spoke highly about soul treatment, and it brought his voice back.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic. Ryan, do you have a special story you want to share?
So we had one client, and her name is Betty, and she was coming into one of our locations with COPD, and she'd come in, she'd have to park really close, and she was, carrying oxygen. She was hooked up to oxygen, and she was carrying it in. And we're like, well, why are you here? How can we help you? And she's like, here, I understand that you guys can help with salt therapy, can help me with COPD. And we're like, yeah, absolutely. And we explained it's going to take a while, and it's never going to go away. But we've had clients that have had benefit from it before, and so she came in, and she would come in, and she regularly, Tim, when she first started coming, she could barely make it to the bench. She couldn't even make it all the way into our facility to get into the salt room. And so, but little by little, next thing I know, she's walking all the way in with no problem. And then before we know it, she's walking in with her oxygen, but she's leaving her oxygen outside, and she's sitting inside of our salt room without oxygen. And the next thing we know, she just comes prancing right on in the door, leaves the oxygen, sitting out in the car. And we're like, what's happening? She's like, this is it. This is what salt therapy has been able to do for me. And, Marita mentioned this, and I think this is very critical for salt therapy in our growth, is to get those testimonials, to get those experiences when folks say, hey, look, it's done a lot for me, to make sure we get that either in written form, or we get it, better yet, in today's side about getting it in video, and making sure, I don't know how it is in other countries, but I do know here in the United States, if I'm going to get someone to record it, I need to get them to sign basically a waiver that I can use their video to show other folks. And that's how we're going to grow our business, is through that word of mouth. So it may not be directly from the word of mouth, such as this client who actually had COPD, but it may be from someone who has COPD that watches her video online and then says, you know what, that could be me. I could get in there and I can help. So
yeah,
testimonials are going to be the key.
Absolutely. And, there's a whole host of other benefits that all of our clients will be getting on top of what they're actually coming for. Like with all the negative ions that are produced in the room, that's also helping to combat what they call electrosmog, or the positive charges in our everyday life created by electronics. And I'm also seeing a lot of people coming just because of anxiety and stress, and finding it absolutely brilliant. They zone out. A lot of people fall asleep in my room, and they're surprised that they fall asleep as well, because they're not really expecting it when they first start coming. And then you find that they're starting to come back again and again, not just because they might have a health issue they want to treat, but because they actually enjoy the opportunity to sit, relax, breathe, and they almost feel like they float out at the end. I don't know if anyone else has that kind of experience.
Yeah, in our rooms, actually, people go and do yoga. I sometimes knock, because first 5 minutes, I always knock on a door, find out if everything is okay, if the salt is going the way it's supposed to. And sometimes I find some people, either they took the t-shirt off because they want to get a best exposure to their skin because they have some psoriasis or any skin conditions, or I find people move the chairs away and suddenly they're in the position of right? And so it really varies, but I see a lot of people doing yoga in there. Mm-hmm.
Does anyone offer any other type of modalities while they're at the salt room, like whether it be singing bowls or breathing techniques or meditation at all? No, just straight salt therapy. I know these are things that some places do offer.
We have in our suites is that if you come in, we have we've worked with one lady on some guided breath work based off of whatever condition that you have or that you're trying to help with. And so there's like 3 or 4 different tracks, depending upon what they are. And she'll just walk you through just, some really basic, breathing exercises. And it really helps, our clients that really enjoy salt therapy, and they get a lot more benefit out of it than just, going in there and sitting.
That's a really good point, actually, because a lot of the respiratory patients that do come in probably aren't breathing correctly. They're probably breathing, up high and not doing proper deep breathing. So helping them to re-educate the breath is also really important. Beata, I think you touched on the eczema and psoriasis as well. Obviously, halotherapy is absolutely brilliant. I can actually share my own testimonial that I suffered terribly badly from eczema right from being a tiny child. It was unsightly, it was horrible. It kept me awake at night. I used to have like red paint. My feet used to get wrapped up in like cling film with like horrible remedies on it. And I was often embarrassed, and that's not really the way that you want to be growing up as a child. And 3 weeks after starting using halotherapy myself, I haven't touched a steroid cream in the past 3 years. That's how transforming it's been for me, and it's been incredible. I didn't think that it would happen, and that's probably partially why I'm so passionate about halotherapy, is because of what I've experienced. And often what comes with eczema is asthma, and I was also asthmatic as well. And I haven't used an inhaler for the past 3 years either. So I'm living proof. But it's one of those things that's quite kind of, I hold to my heart, I guess, when I see other children going through, suffering with eczema, because it's awful. I know how they feel, and to be able to help improve that condition without the need for steroid creams is amazing. How about some of your patients, Beata?
Yeah, I mean, I did mention that we don't have many children, but when they do come, they are either asthmatic or they have skin conditions. So that will be probably those 2 main diagnoses. And I would see children would literally take their socks off. They want to go barefoot in that Dead Sea salt because we have our Dead Sea salt from Israel, just like I see Ryan, our rooms looks very similar to ours. So it really, and kids just playing with the salt, they're rubbing on their arms, rubbing on their legs. And we did see results with more of a medium to moderate. It would be more eczema, rashes, or a little bit more cracked skin on their hands, mainly the hands and feet. Some children would have it behind their ears, and then it kind of went less and less. Obviously, I didn't see anybody rubbing in there, but just exposure from a salt. But we did see great improvement for sure. Yeah.
Sharon, you have quite a few children coming to yours, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. For skin conditions, it's fantastic, especially if the skin is not so broken that they can go in like even say like a nappy, you know, that way. If they do, it will take a little bit longer because you kind of generally keep them covered up. But then once they can let the salt onto the skin, yeah, it's it really does speed up the recovery of the skin. But probably like yourself, Erin, I would suffer terrible with psoriasis as well, especially in my hair and stuff like that. And I haven't had it really since we opened. The same thing again. I think just being there, you know, just kind of clears it up and keeps it at bay for me now, thank God.
Oh, brilliant. I know we're kind of running out of time, but I think one other important area I wanted to just touch on was getting more studies done. And I know that's what a lot of our members are interested in doing. And it's something that is very difficult to get. I do know that we talked briefly, some of us, about some studies that have been done surrounding salt. So I don't know if anyone wants to share some of those with everybody.
I actually was on a Zoom call a couple of months into COVID, and there was a guy from a company called Outbreaker Solutions, and they were really, really good. But he spoke about the effects that salt has on envelope viruses, coronaviruses, and the fact that in a room, like in a salt room or a high concentration of salt, the salt actually kills the virus in under a minute, and it kills bacteria within seconds as well. So I think it's important that people understand as well that salt rooms are a safe place to go. It would be highly unlikely that you would actually catch anything in a salt room. Surfaces and stuff like that are made of CSC, compressed sodium chloride, are showing really good results for a kill time, like for handrails and stuff like that, and door handles, which is what they're looking into as well.
Excellent. That sounds really interesting. Beata?
There's actually studies done, and in November 22nd, I believe, in Canada, Canada has funded Alberta University for making salt masks. There's hundreds of millions of dollars has been funded towards this project. I don't know where they stand at this point, but Canadian website called CADTH, which is Canadian Technology, approving certain technologies to be able to be like just FDA approved. There is actually a research. You can also find that research on our website, because there are lots of research. I have a lot of documents. I'm a research-based person. And it particularly says in there, when a coronavirus particles falls on a salt, it appears to be, okay? So this is, again, read the materials. I'm not saying that's what it does, but they're stating in there that when the coronavirus particles falls on a salt surface, it crystallizes, ruptures through the membrane of the virus, and kills the virus. Again, I'm not saying it's going to kill the coronavirus. That's nothing what I said, but it's stating that it could be the option. And one thing I was going to say is a protection for employees and staff. I haven't had within a year a single staff that had colds or been sick or actually had to leave because they were unwell. Every single staff has been working. So that, to me, is a significant proof in our clinic.
And do they use your salt rooms as well?
They're using a salt room as one of their perks as a part of working with us.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's really good to hear.
We had the exact same experience. We actually had one of our staff members who went and had dinner sitting next to someone for 2 hours, only to find out the next day that she had been exposed to COVID. And in between the two, I mean, she did regular salt sessions, and she came in between the two, between dinner and when she found out, not knowing, and never was even diagnosed. Even went and got tested to say, hey, am I asymptomatic? Nope, nothing like that. And we haven't had any other staff members as well that have been sick.
I think the more that we can share stories, the more that we get our side out there as well, hopefully people will start listening as well, and we can start to get some more studies done, or people will start to think, okay, this is a really interesting way forward, let's really take this seriously. But unfortunately, studies do cost a lot of money, so it's a matter of doing some pilot studies. And I know the Global Wellness Institute have been doing a bit of a study on halotherapy and post-COVID. So it's always interesting, you know, to get these results, and every small pilot study is really going to help make a difference. So if anybody does want to get involved in pilot studies, obviously get in touch, and it would be great to start building a community as well as some results. Yeah. But this has been really great, just catching up with all corners of the world, hearing what's been going on there. I really appreciate your time joining on today. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop them in on the chat, and hopefully one of us can get in touch with you. So thank you all for joining, and we'll see you all again soon.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.